Okay, so the next topic is the vasodilators and the sympatholytics. So these are the different classes of these topic, that is the vasodilators and the sympatholytic. The first subclass is the vasodilators, then the potassium channel agonist, then the selective alpha 2 blockers, then the non-selective beta adrenergic blocker, then the mixed alpha beta blockers, and the final one is the selective beta 1 blockers. So we are going to discuss these subclasses one by one. So before studying the agents which are used in the treatment of the vasodilation and the hypertension, we are going to study first what actually is the hypertension is. So what is hypertension? Hypertension, it is the most common cardiovascular disease, because as we are studying this cardiovascular chapter, so this one is the most common cardiovascular disease and is the major risk factor for the coronary artery disease, the heart failure, stroke, and the renal failure. Approximately 50 million Americans, they have systolic or the diastolic blood pressure ranging from 140 to 90 mm per Hg. The onset of hypertension is defined as having blood pressure of 140 to 90 mmHg or greater or greater. A study has carried out, and in that study it was found that around 68% of the Americans, they are aware that they are having the high blood pressure, that they are suffering from the high blood pressure. Around 53% of the Americans, means out of 68%, around 53% of the Americans are receiving treatment, and only 27% have their blood pressure under control. Since 1976, there is a significant improvement in the rate of awareness, treatment, and control of the hypertension. However, by year 1990, progress has achieved the highest peak. So by year 1990, there is very few cases of the hypertension in the United States of the America. And if there are very few cases, so the death rate is also get reduced, right? The death rate is also get reduced, because currently there are lots of drugs. There are different classes of drugs that are used in the treatment of the hypertension. Currently, there are around more than 80 antihypertensive products are there in the market, representing more than 8 different drug classes. Okay, so there are total 8 different drug classes, and out of that 8 different drug classes, there are around 80 different antihypertensive drugs are currently available in the market. Of course, they shows the potential adverse effects, the clinically significant drug-drug interaction, especially when so many different drug classes are involved, patient compliance, affordability, risk-benefit ratio, and the dosing frequency. So when to design any antihypertensive agent, the scientists have to take into consideration these factors, that is the patient compliance, affordability, risk-benefit ratio, and the dosing frequency. So based on the condition of the patient, these factors have taken into the consideration while designing the antihypertensive agent. Antihypertensive therapy is generally reserved for patients who fail to respond to non-drug therapies along with lifestyle modification, such as diet, including sodium restriction and adequate potassium intake, regular aerobic physical activity, moderation of alcohol consumption, and the weight reduction. Effective blood pressure control for pregnancy-related hypertension can often be achieved with the methyl dopa. So if you see that during pregnancy, those ladies who are suffering, who is carrying the babies, so that ladies have suffer in a certain level of the hypertension. So that so in that case, the hypertension is treated with the methyl dopa or the beta blockers or the mixed alpha beta blockers. Then the vasodilating agent hydralazine is used to treat eclampsia. Then diabetes mellitus and the then there are different classes subclasses are there to treat the hypertension, like the angiotensin receptor blockers, as we have already studied these angiotensin receptor blockers. So these agents are also used in the treatment of the hypertension. Then the combination antihypertensive therapy. Now, for better relief, combination with the different classes of drugs are used to treat the hypertension. As we have studied in the diuretics, so there are different classes. That is the class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, right? There is the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, high ceiling diuretics, then the potassium sparing diuretics, then the osmotic diuretics. So if you check out, all these agents are used in the treatment of the edema and the hypertension, right? So while designing the antihypertensive therapy, most probably the relief is get by combining the different classes of the drugs. For example, if we mix the beta blocker with any of the diuretic class, or if we mix diuretic class with the anti-anginal agent, or the antiarrhythmic agent with the anti-anginal agent. So likewise, the combination is taken into consideration for the treatment of the hypertension. Okay. Now the overview of the vascular tone. Now this is the main topic. So please listen carefully. Overview of the vascular tone. So before beginning the discussion of the sympatholytic and the vasodilators, it is important to review the nature of the vascular tone. What actually is the vascular tone? So the vascular tone is referred to the degree of constriction experienced by blood vessel relatively to its maximally dilated state. So what is a vascular tone? That is, a blood vessel generally, if it is present in its maximum dilated state, if any blood vessel, if it is present in its maximum dilated state, then in how much amount it is get constrict. So that is called as the vascular tone. Okay, that is called as the vascular tone. So the all arteries and the veins, they are under basal condition and exhibit some degree of smooth muscle contraction, which determines the diameter and hence the tone of the vessel. So all the arteries and the veins, they are under basal condition, and all these arteries and veins, they exhibit some degree of the smooth muscle contraction, and because of this smooth muscle contraction, we determine the diameter and hence the tone or the vascular tone of the vessel. Okay, this basal vascular tone, it varies among the organs. Now those organs which are having the large vasodilatory capacity, for example, skeletal muscle, myocardial muscle, skins, they have the high vascular tone, whereas organs which is having a relatively low vasodilatory capacity. Now, which are the organs which are having the low vasodilatory capacity? For example, cerebral and the renal circulation, they have the low vascular tone. Now, this vascular tone is determined by many different competing vasoconstrictor and vasodilator influences acting on the blood vessel. The influences such as the sympathetic nerves and the circulating angiotensin to regulate arterial blood pressure by increasing the vascular tone, that is the vasoconstriction. So because of these influences, that is the arterial blood pressure, that is the circulating angiotensin 2 and the sympathetic nerves, they determine the vasoconstriction and the vasodilation. Okay. On the other hand, no. Before studying, so what was studied now? What actually is the vascular tone, right? So what is the vascular tone? Vascular tone is nothing but if any of the blood vessel, if it is in its maximum dilated state, then how much amount it is constricted. So that is called as the vascular tone. So all the arteries and the veins, they exhibit some degree of the smooth muscle contraction. So uh, on that basis, we determine the diameter of that artery or the vein, and hence we can determine the vascular tone of that vessel. Then the basal vascular tone, it varies among organs. So some are having the large vasodilator capacity, whereas some are having the low vasodilator capacity. The vascular tone is determined by many different competing vasoconstrictor and vasodilator influences acting on the blood vessel. The influences such as the circulating angiotensin II and the sympathetic nerves, which regulate the arterial blood pressure by increasing the vascular tone. That is the vasoconstriction. Okay. So on the other hand, mechanisms for local blood flow regulation within an organ, it include it include endothelial factors. It include endothelial factors, that is nitric oxide and the endothelin, or local hormones or the chemical substances. Examples are thromboxane, histamine, and the bradykinin, that can either increase or decrease the vascular tone. So we have studied about this bradykinin, right? The bradykinin is the factor which dilate the blood vessels. Bradykinin is a factor which dilate the blood vessels. So these are the different mechanisms which regulate the blood flow within an organ. So these are the different mechanisms or the hormones which regulate the blood flow in the organ. The mechanism by which the above influences either constrict or relax blood vessels, they involve a variety of the signal transduction mechanism that ultimately influence the interaction between the actin and myosin in the smooth muscle. Okay, so these are the different mechanism. Now which one mechanism we have studied, that is the nitric oxide and the endothelin factor. So this is the mechanism which regulate the blood volume, which regulate the blood flow in the organ. Or also there are some hormones or the chemical substances such as the histamine, thromboxane, and the bradykinin, which also regulate the blood flow in the organ, and this can either increase or decrease the vascular tone, right? For example, bradykinin. If the bradykinin is given, if the bradykinin is get released, then at that time it shows the vasodilatory effect. If it shows the vasodilatory effect, then the vascular tone is get reduced. If then at that time vascular tone is get reduced. If there is continuous vasoconstriction is occur, then at that time vascular tone is get increased. So this is how there are different mechanisms which we are going to discuss in the next slide. Now the overview of the regulation of vascular smooth muscle contraction and the relaxation. So we are going to discuss in brief about uh, how the vascular smooth muscle are get contracted and are get relaxed. So the contractile characteristics and the mechanism that cause contraction of vascular smooth muscle are very different from those of the cardiac muscle. So till date we have studied the contraction and relaxation of the cardiac muscles. But the contraction, the mechanisms which is involved in the contraction of the vascular smooth muscles, it is very different from those of the cardiac muscle. The vascular smooth muscle undergoes slow, sustained tonic contractions, whereas cardiac muscle contractions are rapid and relatively short duration, generally a few hundred milliseconds. Right? So the vascular smooth muscle contraction, it is very slow as compared to the cardiac muscle contraction. The cardiac muscle contraction is very rapid. Whereas vascular smooth muscle contains actin and myosin, as we have already studied in the anti-anginal agent, the interaction of the actin and myosin. The interaction of the actin and myosin is initiated by the calcium. The calcium, it is get bind to the protein molecule, either troponin or the calmodulin. Once it is get bind to this protein molecule, then it initiate the interaction between the actin and myosin, which results in the vasoconstriction. So the whereas vascular smooth muscle, it contain actin and myosin. It does not have the regulatory protein troponin, as we have studied this troponin in the anti-anginal agent. So vascular smooth muscle does not require the activation protein called as troponin, which is found in the heart. Furthermore, the arrangement of the actin and myosin in the vascular smooth muscle, it is not organized. It is not properly organized as it is seen in the cardiac muscle. But this is not the meaning that if it is not organized in the if the arrangement of the actin and myosin in the vascular smooth muscle, if it is not properly organized, but that is not the meaning that the contraction and the relaxation is get disturbed. If it is disorganized, but still the contraction and the relaxation of the vascular smooth muscle is properly organized. The contraction of the vascular smooth muscles can be initiated by the mechanical, electrical, and the chemical stimuli. Okay, so the vascular smooth muscle contraction, it is initiated by the three stimuli, that is the mechanical, electrical, and the chemical stimuli. The passive stretching of the vascular smooth muscle can cause contraction that originate from the smooth muscle itself, and therefore is termed as myogenic response. Electrical depolarization of the vascular smooth muscle cell membrane also elicits contraction, most likely by opening voltage dependent calcium channel, as we already studied that L-type calcium channel is get open and calcium get enter into the cell and cause contraction. Finally, a number of chemical stimuli such as the hormones or any of the agents like the norepinephrine, angiotensin 2, vasopressin, endothelin 1, and the thromboxane A2, they cause the contraction. As these agents or these hormones, they bind to its particular receptor on the cell and results in the vasoconstriction. Now, each of these substrate, they bind to its specific receptor on the vascular smooth muscle cell, which then lead to the vascular smooth muscle contraction. The mechanism of contraction, it involves different signal transduction pathways, all of which converge to increase the intracellular calcium. So there are three types of the stimuli. One is the electrical, then the another one is the mechanical, and the third one is the chemical stimuli. So by these three types of the stimuli, vascular smooth muscle undergoes the contraction. Now, this is the diagram. So we are going to study this diagram. Now, the mechanism by which an increase in intracellular calcium, the mechanism by which an increase in intracellular calcium, it stimulates vascular smooth muscle contraction. It is showed in this left panel of the diagram. So here is the left panel. So this is the left panel of the diagram, and this one is the right panel of the diagram. So the mechanism by which increase in intracellular calcium which stimulate the vascular smooth muscle contraction, it is shown over here. So an increase in free intracellular calcium results from either increased flux of calcium into the vascular smooth muscle cell through calcium channel or by a release of calcium from the intracellular stores of the sarcoplasmic reticulum. So we have studied in the previous lecture, we have studied the influx and the efflux of the calcium. So there are around 6 to 7 pathways. The leak pathway, then the voltage dependent entry of the calcium, then the receptor operated channel, then the sarcoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria. These type of 6 to 7 pathways we have studied in the previous lecture, that how the calcium is get entered into the cell. So they are going to discuss over here. So the sarcoplasmic reticulum and the mitochondria, they are what? They are the storehouse of the calcium. And when needed, they release this calcium, right? So the sarcoplasmic reticulum is an internal membrane system within the vascular smooth muscle that function as the major regulator of the calcium for managing vascular smooth muscle contraction and the relaxation. The sarcoplasmic reticulum releases calcium during contraction and release free intracellular calcium which bind to a special calcium binding protein called as the calmodulin. So over here, once the calcium is get released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum or the mitochondria, then that calcium bind to a special protein called as the calmodulin or troponin. But in this case, in the figure, they shows the calmodulin. Now this calmodulin, which in turn activate myosin light chain kinase. Okay, so this calcium calmodulin complex, it activate a protein called as the myosin light chain kinase, which is an enzyme which phosphorylate the myosin light chains. Okay, which phosphorylate the myosin light chains, which leads to the actin myosin cross bridge formation between the myosin heads and the actin filaments, and hence results in the vascular smooth muscle contraction. So, as we have studied in the cardiovascular system in the anti-angiogenic agent, it is like same. Okay, it is like same. So, it results in the vascular smooth muscle contraction. Dephosphorylation of these myosin light chain. Okay, dephosphorylation of this phosphorylated myosin light chain by the myosin light chain phosphorylase. Okay, so over here the enzyme is shown, that is the myosin light chain phosphorylase. Okay, it is phosphatase, right? It is phosphatase. So the myosin light chain phosphatase yields myosin light chain, which results in the relaxation of the vascular smooth muscle. So, if the dephosphorylation takes place at the myosin light chain by the enzyme myosin light chain phosphatase, then it results in the relaxation of the vascular smooth muscle. The concentration of the intracellular calcium, it depends on the balance between the calcium which enters the vascular smooth muscle cells, the calcium released by the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and the removal of calcium either transported by the ATP dependent calcium pump back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum. So depend on the concentration of the calcium. So how the concentration of calcium is determined? So the calcium, it is either released by the sarcoplasmic reticulum, the calcium either released by the mitochondria, or the calcium which is released by the sarcoplasmic reticulum. So depend on the concentration of the calcium, the constriction and relaxation takes place. Okay. The activation of the calcium second messenger system by hormones, neurotransmitters, the activation of the calcium second messenger system by hormones, neurotransmitters, local mediators, and sensory stimuli is important in regulating vascular smooth muscle contraction. There are several signal transduction mechanisms which modulate intracellular calcium concentration and therefore the state of the vascular tone. Now, these calcium second messenger system are the phosphatidylinositol, that is a PIP2 GQ protein coupled pathway, the cyclic adenosine monophosphate, that is a CMP-GS protein coupled pathway, and the nitric oxide cyclic guanosine monophosphate pathway. Okay, so these are what? These are the second messenger system. Okay, which activate the calcium. The activation of the calcium second messenger system by hormones, neurotransmitter, local mediators, and sensory stimuli. It is important in regulating the muscle construction. So there are several signal transduction mechanisms which modulate this intracellular calcium concentration. So which are the second messenger system which regulate the or which activate the calcium? So these three are the different second messenger system. That is the phosphatidylinositol, PIP to GQ protein couple pathway, then the CMP-GS protein couple pathway, and the nitric oxide cyclic guanosine monophosphate pathway. So these are the three different second messenger system which activate the calcium. Okay, now over here it is a diagram. Now we can briefly describe this diagram. Now this is the PIP2 pathway. Okay, as we discussed, there are three different mechanisms. The PIP2 GQ protein couple pathway, then the cyclic adenosine monophosphate GS protein couple pathway, and the nitric oxide cyclic guanosine monophosphate pathway. Okay, so first we will discuss this pathway. That's the PIP2 pathway. So the PIP2 pathway in vascular smooth muscle is similar to that found in the heart. The vascular smooth muscle membrane, it is lined with specific receptor. Okay, that vascular smooth muscle membrane, it is lined with specific receptor for the binding of the substances like the norepinephrine, angiotensin 2, or the endothelin 1. So these substances, they bind to a specific receptor which is present on the vascular smooth muscle, which stimulate the GQ protein, because the name of the pathway is what? That is the PIP2 GQ protein couple pathway. Okay, so these substances like the epinephrine, norepinephrine, so they bind to the specific receptor which is present on the vascular smooth muscle, which stimulate, after binding, they stimulate the GQ protein, activating phospholipase C. Okay, so they stimulate the GQ protein and later on they activate the phospholipase C and results in the formation of the inositol triphosphate. Okay, over here it is shown. Okay, so once the substances bind to the receptor which is present on the vascular smooth muscle, then they activate the GQ protein, which activate the phospholipase C, and results in the formation of the inositol triphosphate from PIP2 in the membrane. Then this inositol triphosphate, it stimulates the sarcoplasmic reticulum to release calcium. So here this calcium is get released from the calcium channel. Okay, so this inositol triphosphate, it activate the sarcoplasmic reticulum to release the calcium, which in turn activate the phosphorylation of myosin light chain. Okay, as we have already studied that the calcium which is get released from sarcoplasmic reticulum, it is then activate the phosphorylation of the myosin light chain. Once the myosin light chain is get phosphorylated, then results in the contraction of the vascular smooth muscle. Okay, the formation of the diacylglycerol, over here it is shown, which activate protein kinase C, which also contribute to the vascular smooth muscle contraction via phosphorylation of the myosin light chain. This diacylglycerol, it is formed from the activation of the phospholipase C. So once the phospholipase C is get activated, it form inositol triphosphate as well as it form the diacylglycerol. So this diacylglycerol is also involved in the contraction of the vascular smooth muscle. Okay, so this is what about the PIP2 GQ protein couple pathway. Then the next pathway is the CMP GS protein couple pathway. So here is a diagram. This diagram is little bit blurred, but please check out properly. So the CMP GS protein couple pathway. As we have discussed three pathways. One is the PIP2 GQ protein couple pathway. Then the second one is the CMP GS protein couple pathway, and the third one is the nitric oxide CGMP pathway. So the second pathway is the CMP-GS protein couple pathway. It stimulates the adenylate cyclase enzyme. Okay, the CMP-GS protein couple pathway, it stimulates the adenylate cyclase enzyme, which catalyze the formation of the CMP. In muscular smooth muscle, unlike the heart, an increase in intracellular CMP concentration stimulated by the beta-2 adrenoreceptor agonist such as epinephrine or the isoproterenol binding to the beta receptor inhibit myosin light chain phosphorylation causing the vascular smooth muscle relaxation. So this CMP-GS protein couple pathway, this this CMP-GS protein couple pathway is involved in the vascular smooth muscle relaxation. Okay, this pathway is involved in the vascular smooth muscle relaxation. How it relaxes the vascular smooth muscles? That is, this pathway, it stimulates the adenylate cyclase enzyme. And once this enzyme is get activated, it catalyzes the formation of the CMP. As we have studied in the heart, that increased intracellular CMP concentration, which is stimulated by the beta adrenoreceptor agonist, that is the beta adrenoreceptor agonist in heart we have studied that the beta adrenoreceptor agonists such as the epinephrine and the isoproterenol, they bind to the beta receptor, and thereby they increase the CMP concentration. And once they increase the CMP concentration, they inhibit the myosin light chain phosphorylation. Once the phosphorylation is get inhibited, then it results in the relaxation of the vascular smooth muscle. Therefore, the drugs that increase CMP, they cause the vasodilation. Okay, they cause the vasodilation. So this CMP-GS protein couple pathway, it increases the CMP level, so it involved in the vasodilation. Now the third mechanism. So the third mechanism is shown on this right side of the diagram. The third mechanism is very important in regulating vascular smooth muscle tone is the nitric oxide CGMP pathway. It is shown in the right panel of the diagram. The formation of nitric oxide in the endothelium, it activates guanylate cyclase. Okay, so this pathway, the third pathway, that is the nitric oxide CGMP pathway, it is also important in the regulation of the vascular smooth muscle tone. The formation of the nitric oxide in the endothelium, it activates the nitric oxide. The nitric oxide formation in the endothelium. It activates the enzyme called as the guanylate cyclase. It activates the enzyme called as the guanylate cyclase, which causes increased formation of the CGMP. Okay, which causes increased formation of the CGMP and thereby cause the vasodilation. The precise mechanism by how this CGMP relaxes the vascular smooth muscle, it is unclear, but CGMP can activate a CGMP dependent PKC. What is the PKC? Can anyone tell me what is the PKC? As we already studied in this diagram, that is the protein kinase C. Over here it is shown, the protein kinase C. Okay, so the mechanism is unclear, but it is found that CGMP can activate a CGMP dependent protein kinase C, which inhibit calcium entry into the vascular smooth muscle, which activate the potassium channel and decrease the inositol triphosphate. So if we decrease the inositol triphosphate, then of course if the inositol triphosphate concentration is get decreased, then it further does not activate the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and then calcium is not released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, so the vascular smooth muscle contraction is get inhibited. So this pathway is also related with the relaxation or the dilation of the vascular smooth muscle cells. Okay.